Hey everybody, Michael Maskey here with ZM Medical and Healthmark. And today what I'm going to be covering is endoscope cleaning verification. And this is one of the most common questions that I'm asked, is explaining, here all the changes have happened in the standards and we're trying to figure out what do we need to purchase and how much and how is this going to look and how is it going to align with our budget. And so what I like to do is go over all of the different testing, look at not only the testing, but how much does it cost and how much time is it going to take, what's going to create in your department, and giving you that information so that then you have the information by which to make the best decision. And because there's just been a lot of misinformation that's been given out there. So this tool here, so if you think of this like a bullseye in the center, this is a tool and a way of thinking about this whole endoscope cleaning verification, because now we have AAMI Standard 91, we've got the SGNA guidelines, we've got AORN, and they are all recommending a cleaning verification step. Okay, but there's a lot of different things you can do that have different costs, have different levels of effectiveness, and also have different amounts of time involved. So hopefully this video is going to help. So I'm going to jump right in here. So when you're looking at endoscope cleaning verification, right here in the bullseye in the center is culturing, right? And so when you culture an endoscope, you are going to know exactly what's going on inside that endoscope. You are going to know from the very, very details of specific types of bacteria that might have been present within that sampling. It is incredibly accurate. Now, the challenge with the culturing is, one, the cost of it. Culturing can be very expensive, whether you're doing it at your own lab at the hospital or if you're sending it out. It can be a very pricey thing to do, as well as culturing also has the challenge of you have to quarantine that scope then until you get the results back. So that's probably the biggest factor, is you're going to lose a scope for 3 to 5 days while you wait for that sample to come back. And so facilities that came to us and said, boy, we don't want to lose that, but the big things we're concerned about are sort of some of the gram-negative bacterias like your CREs or your MRSAs. So that's where this one right here, just in this outer sort of next level, is called Healthmark's Now test. Okay, so our Now test is probably 10 to 12 bucks per test is what's going to cost. But the Now test is going to check for gram-negative bacteria. And so it's going to give you a quantitative measure, but you've got some capital that you'll need to buy for an incubator because you're going to be incubating samples. But what it'll do is within 12 hours, you will have, after 12 hours, you'll have a result that will tell you that it is under a certain amount of gram-negative bacteria present, such that the scope is then safe to use. Okay. Now, if you had a positive result for gram-negative bacteria, it's not going to tell you specifically what kind, but that's when then you may want to culture that endoscope to see what that bacteria is. So this would be sort of that bridging that gap of we don't have the time to culture, but still the cost it's pretty costly. There's a lot more chemistry involved, and so it's a little bit more time consuming of a test because you're going to be incubating samples overnight. And so it requires a little bit more diligence in that process. The next one out here is anything related to swabbing of the endoscopes. So what we can do is as we move out here, we have 2 different types of tests that Healthmark has. We have for our EndoCheck, can inspect for hemoglobin. And so this one over here is hemoglobin, and this one over here is protein. So we have 2 different types of and it's down to 0.1 micrograms is the accuracy. Now, these tests are probably about $6 to $7 a piece, roughly. Sort of depends on some of the GPO contracts. So you're looking at, say, $6 a piece for the swabbing test. And this one is going to take maybe about 5 minutes. But you basically swab through the endoscope, and then you'll clip off the end, and it's a quick little 5-minute test. So, and then in this realm, you don't have to buy any capital readers or anything like that. So this is a much, but as you get out, it's not going to be quite as accurate or maybe useful of information. but to 0.1 micrograms for protein or hemoglobin will you get a test result. And so the other thing I do want to point out is all of these will get you in compliance with whether it's SGNA, AORN, or the AAMI standards. And the other thing I'm going to say is that one of the things that we will work with you the most on, I can put some links in here as well for you, is policies and procedures, log sheets, and because you want to make sure that you don't write it up in a way that when Joint Commission comes in and inspects where it gets you in trouble, okay? Because the standards don't tell you, should you do every single endoscope? Should you do one endoscope a day, one endoscope a week? It doesn't really, there's not that level of detail. So we can work with your facility, we can work with you on like a risk assessment where you look at the risks and then look at something where you want to have this QA process and this verification process in place. Now, as we move out along the way here is one of our flushing methods. And so for flushing method, and I'll pull this one off here, we have what's called our ChannelCheck. And so when facilities are first going down the line of looking at what to use, this is typically when you're just starting off on this process, this is where I'm going to aim people to, is right here, because this is going to give you some information. And what this one is going to look for is hemoglobin, proteins, and carbohydrates. And because it's a flushing method, what you do is you'll take 10 cc's of sterile water, flush it down the biopsy channel, collect it in a little bag underneath, and it's a simple little sort of almost like a dipstick that maybe you've used for like testing pool chemicals. And so you're going to test that sample, and it's going to give you tell you if there's a positive result of hemoglobin, protein, or carbohydrates. Now this test, it's roughly $1 a test, so it's very inexpensive. It's fast. So basically it's about 60 to 90 seconds total that this is going to take as far as time. So when you're looking for something to implement, this is the easiest place to start. I think it's as you get much more further in here, it gets a lot more costly and it gets a lot more time involved as well. But you get more accuracy with what you're looking for. But this is where I tend to start people at. And then this next realm over here, I haven't even put it in here because I think it's a little bit of a travesty that it's getting positioned as such, which is ATP testing. And it's way out there and it's giving you some information. But my question is what is that information it's giving you and what are you going to do with it as a result of that information? And ATP is a great test as it relates to food service and environmental services for inspecting things like bed rails to see if they've been cleaned. But as far as using it for endoscopes, we just have a lot of issue with determining what is that information telling you and what are you going to do as a result of that. And so ATP is basically, it's just the residual. So if I take my hand and rub on a surface, I'm going to leave ATP behind, which is just the remains of it's basically saying that, hey, there was tissue that's alive that is residual and is on that surface. And so this here, from culturing to our gram-negative bacteria now test, to the swabbing, to the flushing, those are all of the different ways that we can help you. And in addition to that, probably the most important is really working with you on policies and procedures and having good log sheets. So we sort of bring that all together to help you as our customer with this new step that is now out there, which is endoscope cleaning verification. So again, Michael Maskey, my contact information is below. So if you want samples of any of these, please give me a phone call or an email. And definitely I'm glad to come out and glad we have a great CEU program for this very topic where we get much more detailed as far as what's going on with the different, whether it's SGNA or AAMI, and we get really into details about why this has happened, why this has changed, and why we're now inspecting endoscopes in this way. So thanks so much, Michael Maskey, and have a great day.